Welcome back once again from live at Big 12 Media Days. It's Doug Lesmerieses with Kings of the North, and back in Ohio, Bill Landis. And we're going to wrap up day 2 here. They're tearing things down, Landis, here in Allegiant Stadium. So I don't think they're going to tear my table down quite yet, but they're getting ready to move on to the next thing.
What is the next thing? They got like a circus coming in there. A Blue Man Group. What's going on?
Have you ever seen Blue Man Group?
No, but you strike me as somebody who would enjoy the Blue Man Group.
I don't know.
And I kind of mean that as a compliment.
I don't know if you do. I'm not sure I disagree with the characterization, but I'm not sure it's a compliment. I do know the Mountain West has its media day tomorrow here in Vegas, but it's not here in Allegiant Stadium. And I've been told by all the other media people who were invited, and I wasn't officially invited, but like Oregon State and Washington State are doing a little mini Pac-2 news thing tonight. So maybe I'll go over there if they have pretzels or something.
That sounds nice. Yeah.
So today we want to wrap up what happened with day 2 here of Big Ten Media Days. We'll tell you we have a full show that will come out Thursday with interviews here on Kings of the North. That's going to be a West Virginia heavy show. I talked to Garrett Green, talked to Wyatt Milam, talked with Neil Brown. They didn't actually come to our table, but I went out and got them and had good conversations with them. You guys will enjoy that. Then we had talked to a couple media friends, Adam Rittenberg of ESPN.com, Shahan Jeharaja of CBS Sports. They will be on that show. We talked to the chief marketing officer from the Big 12, which I think was a relevant conversation. We like to talk ball here, but it was how branding and marketing affects the ball. And then we talked to the Colorado punter, because I'm okay with us becoming the official home of Northern punters, and I assume you are too.
Yeah, that's the only reason I'm doing this show. So
okay,
yeah, that's great.
I think that's a good lane for us, because it was like, well, they're not going to bring us Deion or Shador or Shiloh or Travis Hunter. So
Travis Hunter wasn't even there, right? He was supposed to be, but he was replaced by the punter.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we'll pretend it was Travis Hunter. So the punter was good. So we like talking to punters. But I do want to talk about Colorado on this show. So we'll have some BYU conversation on the Thursday show. We'll have West Virginia conversation. But I want to focus on Colorado on this show tonight, Bill, because we talked a lot about Deion Sanders last year and Dan Lanning, and sort of like the way Dan Lanning went after Deion Sanders and the publicity that Colorado was generating. And would it be fair to say that Dan Lanning seemed like he didn't like it?
Yeah, he seemed like he didn't like it. I also wonder how much he would have projected that had he not been uber confident in his team's ability to beat down Colorado, because he knew how much better his roster was compared to Colorado. So it was like I felt like popcorn muscles a little bit to me, if I'm being honest. But either way, yes, I would say that he probably did not like it.
So I didn't know what to make of the fact that when Deion got to his news conference today in Las Vegas, he said, first of all, he loved Brett Yormark, the commissioner of the Big 12. He gave him some love. Then he said, much love to Gus. Coach Malzahn at UCF, just ran across him. I'm just highlighting a couple of the coaches because they've been so kind. They've been so considerate and so wonderful to me. Okay. Then he went on, Mike Gundy, called him a damned legend. Like went on a whole Mike Gundy thing, loves Mike Gundy. Then went on to Joey McGuire, big time Texas high school coach. I guess maybe coached one of his kids at one of his Deion's kids in high school.
Yeah, he coached Deion Jr. Yeah.
Okay. And now I love you. You're doing wonderful work down there in Texas Tech. So he starts off with all the wonderful coaches here in the Big 12. And I don't know, maybe I'm too obsessed with the Dan Lanning, Deion Sanders mini feud from last year, but it felt like throwing shade at Dan Lanning.
Good. He should throw shade at Dan Lanning. Yeah. I don't think so. Deion, I guess Deion did not go to Pac-12 media days last year because I think he was sick, or he had some kind of health thing going on. He couldn't make it. So like this was his first media day. But I bet if they were still in the Pac-12, he wouldn't have said that. Said those things about the other coaches. Yeah.
Run down the list. So the point here is the point that I want to make, because we did have, and again, on the Thursday show on KOTN, we did have an interesting conversation about how branding matters for football. And I do think branding matters for the Big 12 right now. And is it not true that Deion Sanders is the biggest brand in this new Big 12? Would you agree or disagree with that?
I would 100% agree with that. Yes.
Okay. And do you feel like the Big 12 needs that? Do you think they need some Deion Sanders juice right now?
I do. Yeah. I think I understand that for some reason, I don't really know why, to be honest, that Deion is not for everybody. Um, he is out there. He is a little bit of a showman. He's not afraid to really just kind of say whatever comes off the top of his head. But he's like pretty bold in some of the proclamations he makes, and it feels like the Big 12 wants to operate similarly. So like I do think this is actually a really nice relationship between the two of them. I don't know whether or not Deion Sanders views himself as somebody who can like help prop up the Big 12, but I'm almost certain the Big 12 views Deion Sanders as somebody they can use to help prop up their league for sure.
The thing that I think is the most interesting is if he can bring eyeballs, and we did our TV draft and we referenced all the highest rated games from last year, and the two highest rated Northern college football teams a year ago were Ohio State and Colorado. So we think they will play good ball in the Big 12 this year, but they need to make sure people are watching it. And so I think last year, in a world where USC is a brand, Oregon is a brand, Washington was doing its thing, I don't know that I think maybe the Pac-12 viewed Deion Sanders and upstart Colorado as more of a nuisance, or more of they're pounding their, sizzle, not substance.
Right.
Whereas I think the Big 12 might be like, thank you for your sizzle. If he brings eyeballs to Arizona and Utah and Kansas State and Iowa State and West Virginia, that's a good thing for the Big 12. I think Deion Sanders can legitimately help the Big 12 get attention for their good ball, which might help them play better ball in the future.
Yes, I think you're right. And I also like I think there's almost no scenario where this is bad for the Big 12, because even if Colorado is not markedly improved and only manages to win 4 or 5 games again this year, people enjoy watching Colorado lose. So they will watch the other Big 10 teams beat Colorado. And there's also the chance that Colorado was good, right? Like it's hard to figure out how a team that is made up the majority of transfers is going to fare. But like, you look at the pieces they bought, and they can absolutely be a much better football team than they were last year. And then you're not talking about merely getting eyeballs because it's Colorado. You're get eyeballs because it's two good football teams. Like, it's going to be a good football game. So I don't really see how the Big 12 could stand to lose in either scenario.
So I think we'll get eyeballs on their non-conference game at Nebraska in week 2. That'll be good. And then otherwise, North Dakota State, Colorado State, Baylor, and UCF. UCF might be good this year, but they're in the South. We don't care. Then they have a bye week. October 12th, Kansas State. October 19th at Arizona. October 26th, Cincinnati. And Deion Sanders announced on Wednesday that game is a sellout at Colorado. Cincinnati at Colorado. Then a bye, then at Texas Tech, Utah, at Kansas, Oklahoma State. So among like really good contenders in the Big 12, they're going to play Central Florida, Kansas State, Arizona, Utah, Kansas, and Oklahoma State. And that stretch in November, maybe just because people are still interested in watching how good Travis Hunter is, how good Shadur Sanders is, or maybe interested in watching Colorado lose, that might get eyeballs on 3 really good Big 12 teams when the Big 12 is trying to get 2 teams in the playoff.
Yeah, no, and like the draft stuff, because of like the also factors into it too. Like even if I don't think they're going to be a terribly bad football team, but even if they were, people will still be watching them for draft purposes for Shadur and Travis Hunter. And I guess like Deion said he thinks they're going to have 4 first-round draft picks. He mentioned BJ Green as the 3rd, and then wouldn't say who the 4th mystery man is. I'm actually interested to figure out who that might be. But yeah, like I said, there's just so many different avenues, I think, for Colorado to kind of drive attention to this conference, and none of it real. I don't think any of it's bad. Like, even like I said, like, I understand that Deion's a bit polarizing, but I don't necessarily think that's bad for the league. It's probably annoying for Deion to deal with at times, but I still think it's a good thing for the Big 12.
So let's talk about the Colorado football team, because we've talked a lot about, everybody has talked about their offensive line. Mm-hmm. They've completely reshaped that. Deion Sanders seemed to express confidence in that. He expressed a lot of confidence in Robert Livingston, the new defensive coordinator they got from the Cincinnati Bengals. I think we have liked that hire. Do you legitimately think Colorado will, when we've talked about this, I think we had a little disagreement about it, but like, they could compete for a bowl? Yes?
Yeah, I think so. I was more skeptical of that idea, I think, the first time we talked about it than certainly you were. The closer we get to the season, the more I think about it. Like, I'm coming around to the idea a little more of them being a bowl team and perhaps something better than that, like just kind of reassessing what they've done. The offensive line stuff is hard just because I think it's really difficult to like try to rebuild your offensive line through the portal. So I could see that still being kind of an issue for them. But I do think they're going to be much better on defense. I think they did some really nice work on the defensive line, specifically in the transfer portal. I think they'll probably run the ball better, even if their offensive line's not great, which will help Shedeur and help out the passing attack. And like, I don't know, this is probably me. It's taking it too far, but the last time, or not the last time, but the other time that jumps to mind of like a head coach grabbing a relatively unknown NFL assistant from a team that plays really good defense seemed to work out pretty well for Jim Harbaugh, right? So why maybe it could work out well for Deion and get like the Cincinnati Bengals were a really good defensive team. I like a lot of the Cincinnati Bengals success is like actually based on how good they are defensively for as much attention as Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase get. So like to grab somebody off of that staff and try to bring that system to Colorado, I don't think is a bad idea. So I think bowl team is definitely attainable. I would probably hold off on saying like contending for the Big 12, even though we do think it's a league with a lot of parity. But like on paper, talent wise, Colorado probably stacks up favorably against the rest of the league. It's just a matter of whether or not all the pieces come together or like if the cohesion's right for that to happen.
Deion talked about sort of like the standard. It's an interesting, every Deion Sanders news conference is interesting because it's confrontational, because he believes in himself so wholeheartedly. He comes in with like a chip on his shoulder of anybody who isn't all in. But then inevitably, when he comes in with a chip on your shoulder, then there are people who are kind of like will ask questions that sort of like try to get in Deion's good graces. And then he'll be like, that is a wonderful question. And then it's like, he said, I had a wonderful question. Mike, let's run the Deion clip. We took out part of what he said in his opening news conference at Big 12 Media Days about the standard he feels like he and his program must reach.
Being able to listen to my dad, being able to get his advice, being able to get his wisdom. He did everything I'm trying to do in life, and he always says that. But I tell him I'm gonna do it better. So that's the only thing. Just being to have somebody in your corner that really wants the best for you, and it's hard to find. I'll say in this world if it's not within your family.
Shedeur, I apologize. I just walked up, but you've already answered this. I asked your dad while he was on the stage because of who
I
he
seen
is.
I seen you up there. Yeah.
So in terms of him operating with a certain obligation, does that sort of flow over to you as his son and being in the spotlight, as you just answered, that it's a different level in how you feel you have to perform? Do you have an obligation to perform at a different level?
It's been that since day one. I remember first media day when I was in HBCU, I said we won't lose a game. I'm undefeated in the SWAC, so I already know what the expectation comes with. I know where everybody's Super Bowl, so I'm really just I always stay level-headed, stay grounded, because I would never want to be that guy, look back, and not being able to take advantage of the moment that we have right now.
We have two former NFL players in Las Vegas that coached high school, and they're retired now, but they're faith-driven men, Randall Cunningham and Vernon Fox. They used to always tell me, we are not football coaches. We are leaders of young men. It appears like your father operates under the same mentality.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
I mean, you just got to check what he's done in his life. Playing days after playing days. Check that. He's the one that was able to, guide us and get us to where we are. He just put the platform out there. We had to carry it and carry the throne and be able to do everything we're able to do. And that's the thing. The family names everything.
Shedeur, you mentioned all the transfer portal that you guys moved. That's the way it works anymore. One of your guys last year on the team, Dylan Edwards, is now in the league you're in now at K-State. Any hard feelings with him transferring? Do you understand his situation?
Nah, I never would knock a player for transferring if he feels like that's best for him. That's my guy at the end of the day, regardless of anything. So if that was the best decision for him, that's great for him.
Were you a little surprised though?
No, I wasn't surprised. I talked to him, just in general, but I kind of understood where his mind was at, and I understand. Like, the thing with me, I'm never a biased guy. If you feel like something's better for you, then I would want you to. I'm a friend. Like, at the end of the day, like, I won't lie to you. I won't do anything that use you for my own selfish reasons. At the end of the day, if that's best for you, you got to live your life for the next however many years you live. I'm not living nobody else's life, so if that's for them, that's on them. You know, I'm not really too trying to control nobody else's life.
Thank you.
What you were saying though?
No, I was just going to ask you, you guys added Jordan Seaton to the squad this
Yeah.
year. I know that was a huge upgrade for you.
Yeah.
The O-line has been a big talk last year, but I'm really interested to see how you feel about the O-line this year. I know you guys haven't played a game yet, but from the guys you brought in, how do you feel about it?
It's really like a family. It's really we're able to hang with each other on and off the field. What's crazy is my friends in life always been O-linemen. That's the difference. Like my friend Junior right now, he's in Dallas. He used to play with me on the O-line. So I always, you know, I just think those guys are different type of guys, and they're real cool, and they really love and care for me. So it's more of a they not trying to let their brother get back there, you know, and get hit, you know. So it's fun. I enjoy being around them. I love them, and they know that. And we're able to, you know, all hands on deck. It's the season to be able to do everything.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Sure. Thank you.
With what you brought to the programs in the historic black colleges and to Colorado, do you feel an obligation with whom you are to perform at a higher level or coach at a higher level?
Yeah, yes. I'm judged on a different scale. My wins are totally different than your wins. Your wins, you just judge in football. That's why I have to start out and give you education and academics and so forth. I have to give you those things so you understand there's a greater scope. I can't win 9 games and our GPA suffers. Our GPA can't be high, but we lose another 8 games. We can't not go and grab high school players and you got a bunch of guys in the portal, out of the portal that's getting incarcerated. My wins are different. We have to win in every area. That's the way we're judged. And I'm cool with that because we come a little different. So the expectation is greater. But it's not just football. It's been like that all my life. I've always had a greater expectation for myself. So the expectation you have for me would never outweigh the expectation I have of myself. Thank you. That's a wonderful question.
Major parts of Sanders' confidence there, right? That was Shedeur Sanders at the start and then Deion Sanders. It's either for you or it rubbed you the wrong way. But, man, if you take it in a certain way, how can you argue with the confidence in that family? And, like, Deion Sanders is one of the great American athletes of this century, and Shedeur Sanders might be a top 5 pick, right?
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. I was distracted by Braun Breaker and Big E from WWE being in the background of Shedeur's interview there.
See, you really should be here because there's offensive lineman talk, there's punter talk, and I just saw a guy walking around with a belt, and you know who that person is.
Yeah, the guy with the belt was Braun Breaker, who played football at Kennesaw State, and the other guy was Big E, who actually played at Iowa and might actually be someone we should have on the show sometime.
You would have. All I know is, so I talked to the marketing guy for the Big 12 who was talking about why they brought the WW. For real, we're having a Colorado conversation, and you were like wrestler in background.
Well, then I saw you in the background too. Just a lot of famous people in the background of these videos. No, I thought so. Like I saw some people tweeting like snippets of that Deion quote, and I thought to myself like, oh boy, people aren't going to like that. But then like I watched the whole thing in totality. I was like, no, like I think it makes sense what he's saying because he owned it, right? He didn't. I'm putting words in his mouth, but I felt like what he was saying is like, I know what I bring on. Like I know how I carry myself and how that makes people feel and how that makes them react to me and like the things they want to say, and I'm okay with that. So like as long as he owns it, like I'm good with it too. It'd be one thing like if he were Deion and got all the blowback that he gets and then acted as if he were like some kind of victim because of it. I don't know. I don't think that would land particularly well with me, but I don't think that's what he was doing at all. I think he was acknowledging the situation, but also, you know, accepting that he's perfectly okay with that reality.
It's just one of those things. Like if you said to Minnesota, would you want Bo Jackson to be your coach? Right? If you just said to South Carolina, like, do you want Shohei Ohtani to be your football coach? I don't know. It's like he's one of the most famous athletes we've had, and it's better than Carl Durrell. Like that's the standard you have to think about here. So we talked about it. I think we had a good conversation about Colorado on the North Remembers, looking back at a 1994 Colorado game and Bill McCartney. I don't know if they can find the next Bill McCartney. Okay. But if not, do this. And I do think this conference can really use this. We'll get more into this conversation on Thursday, but I am very confident in the ball for the Big 12 this year. I am not confident in how it will be perceived. How do you feel about those two things for this conference in 2024?
Yeah, similarly, like, I'm very confident in the ball too. I worry about how it'll be perceived, and I also worry about some of the stuff that I understand why the Big 12 wants to be at the forefront of like almost everything that's changing with college football, whether that's like ads on the field, ads on the jerseys, private equity, all that stuff. But like that's distracting too. Like those conversations take away from the conversations about football. And I think that's like a delicate balance that the conference is going to have to navigate. And also too, beating the perception of obviously the Big Ten and SEC. And I don't know how people feel about the ACC relative to the Big 12. I think it's pretty clear that the Big 12 is better than the ACC, but historically, maybe people don't think that's the case and don't view the conferences as currently constructed that way. But I think if that is the case, I think that will change this season. So there's just a lot going on. Like I think the Big 12 needs to be careful, like not to hurt itself as it's trying to remain relevant in the national conversation. Because I do think the football will speak for itself if it allows it to. If the conference allows it to.
I wonder if the football. I think the football might need a megaphone. I think the football might whisper for itself, and that some Deion Sanders and the wrestling guy, they need to hold a megaphone up to so that people understand how good it is. So I'm very curious how this unfolds, and we will talk about this all season on Kings of the North, because what you and I are going to do is watch everybody. We're going to watch everybody in the North every week, and we're going to contextualize how good West Virginia and Iowa State and Kansas State and Utah and all those teams look, and we're going to try to think about how they compare to Iowa and Penn State and Nebraska and everybody else in that conversation in the Big Ten, and we'll think about how they compare to Ole Miss and everybody else in that conversation in the SEC. But we also will monitor TV ratings, and we will try to bathe in perception. Because I think one of the most interesting, if I had 10 most interesting questions for the college football season, on that list would be, will the Big 12 get 2? And the football will determine that to some degree, and we've had that conversation, but I think the perception will also affect it. And I'll be very curious if people are talking about like, man, the Big 12 is good, or if people are talking about, man, Ole Miss, the Big 12, what? And then we will help fight against that.
What were the conversations like in Vegas? Like, was there, I know Brett Yormark said that he thinks it's the deepest conference in college football, but like, was that a consistent talking point on both days? Like, was there enough ball talk, I guess, or was it more about like the Big 12 wanting to be a trendsetter in other areas?
No, I think there's a decent amount of ball talk. And again, like for instance, West Virginia today, Neil Brown is a little bit like not loving their schedule because of how difficult it is.
Yeah.
So like, for instance, they're playing both Pitt and Penn State in the non-conference, which he's like, why are we like the only team in the country playing 11 Power 4 teams? We think it's awesome. We think West Virginia should play Penn State and Pitt every year. But then when you add in the fact that they play, I think West Virginia was picked 7th. I think they are playing teams that were picked 2 through 6. The only team they miss is Utah, I think. So like that schedule, that's a football reality for West Virginia, that they feel they feel like Arizona and Kansas State and Iowa State and all those teams, they think that's a meat grinder. And so I think a lot of other people, I think that the rest of the conference is feeling that as well. And I do think teams like BYU and Cincinnati and stuff, like, you also realize, like, if we don't get our stuff together, we're going to get left behind here, because I think there are not only good teams here, but good programs. Like, Utah is probably not going away, and Kansas State's probably not going away. And if Lance Leipold stays at Kansas, they might not be going away. So like, if you fall behind, it might be hard to catch up. So I think there is a ball reality that we think it's wonderful, but the coaches here understand it's a challenge, and they just have to be able to spin it into a positive, not a negative, that we have a bunch of good teams. And what does that mean? In a 12-team playoff, I think it provides more opportunity for, we're respected. It helps our number 2 and 3 teams. Whereas in the past, it might just beat you down. I hope it can be a positive for the Big 12, but we have to monitor it. We have to monitor it.
Yeah. Is there I don't want to spoil the show that's going to go on Thursday, but is there can BYU get its stuff together conversation in there?
There's a little bit. Adam and Rittenberg and I ran through all 8 Northern teams in the Big 12 and like their coaching futures and how solid they are and like what state the programs are in. So there is that is part of the conversation in there for sure.
Okay.
So there's a lot of West Virginia. Frank's a lot of West Virginia, but
we love the Mountaineers.
But yeah, we love the Mountaineers. So we'll call it there. I'm getting on a flight. I will be flying back to Ohio on Thursday. We will be welcoming officially Kansas and Kansas State to Kings of the North next week. And so we will have a show that we drop next week that is it will be entirely conversations with Kansas and Kansas State people, basically getting their permission to add them, which I did. Sometimes I had to twist their arm, but I did. So we are now at 28 teams. We're going to be at 28 teams that we talk about from the Power Four, who we consider as part of the North. And I think we're going to have a Nick Saban hole conversation next week. So the hole that he left in college football, to be clear.
Okay.
So I write that down. Be clear what the So do you have any other big questions? Any questions about the Big 12 before we get out of here, Landis? Before I leave Vegas?
Is there like so they did the poll, right? And Utah was the number 1 team and Kansas State was the number 2 team.
Yeah.
Did you get any sense there of like who people might think could be like the dark horse in the Big 12 race this year? If it's not one of those 2 teams, like who do people like?
Yeah, I mean, I really think in some ways, I think Kansas State is kind of a dark horse that like, even though they're number 2, I think they just don't get, they aren't thought of that way for as good of a program as they've been. I mean, I think the dark horse is West Virginia because they probably were ranked too low. Again, I talked about it with Adam Rittenberg. They were ranked 7th. I checked my ballot. I did my ballot at Disney World on a bus, and I got it done. And I had West Virginia 2nd. I put Utah 1 and West Virginia 2 because I think that's what my prediction would be today for what the Big 12 title game will be. So I think West Virginia is officially that dark horse.
Okay. Yeah, the schedule is just tough. But I do think most of those games are home, right? Like I know they're tougher opponents, but they did catch a little bit of a break in terms of home road splits. But it is without a doubt, I think, the
and
most
it's front
difficult
loaded.
path. Yeah.
It's front loaded. If they can survive and stay afloat, other teams might knock themselves off late because their last 4 are their November is bye at Cincinnati, Baylor, UCF, at Texas Tech. So that's not as tough.
Yeah.
Their beginning of the season, 6 of their first 8 opponents are like top 40 teams. So they play Penn State, Kansas, Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Kansas State, and Arizona in September and October.
Yeah.
So we'll find out.
I've thought for a while that they're going to be Penn State. So we'll see how that goes.
Coming around. I was telling West Virginia people that today, that I think people will sleep on them until they beat Penn State, and then everyone will be on the bandwagon, and we will welcome them.
That's right.
Because we'll be driving it. All right. He's Bill Landis. Thanks to our producer, Mike Urostowski, for pulling all this together for what we try to do here at Big 12 Media Days. We made progress. We explained ourselves to this conference. We met some people. We laid some groundwork. We made friends with some punters. And I was drinking a large mango slushy with, I guess, some alcohol in it and like a giant thing shaped like a guitar. I was walking through the casino last night, and Pete Thamel from ESPN saw me and was like, I am never letting you forget that. So, but I also think like I sort of already was the mango slushy and a guitar guy, right?
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
kidding?
You have that energy for sure. Yes.
I
Did you
was
know
not
there was
like-
alcohol in it? Did you just want
but-
a tasty treat in a guitar cup and then like there was accidentally alcohol in there?
You just want a souvenir. I want a souvenir and a slushie. What's wrong with that? Yeah, no, it wasn't a ton of alcohol, but it was enough for me. I'll tell you that. So, I mean, I am not the sophisticated guy sitting in like eating a $200 dinner and sipping a martini. I went to In-N-Out. In-N-Out mango slushy. I'm everyone's uncle in Vegas. So yeah, KOTN, we're growing. We're spreading the word. We appreciate you guys being here. Look for the new show on Thursday. New shows next week, and we will be in Indianapolis for Big Ten Media Days. All of us there together before you know it. So let's get ready for that. Look forward to that. Yeah?
I'm excited. Yeah, I am actually. Yeah.
I'll buy you a mango slushie in Indianapolis, and it'll come in like a giant horseshoe. Or
it's going to be a
stalk of
mango
corn.
slushie in a cup that's shaped like a fried pork tenderloin sandwich.
But then you would rather just have a pork tenderloin in that situation, right?
Absolutely.
You would rather have a pork tenderloin in a cup shaped like a mango slushie. So, all right, we're getting silly. Thanks to everybody for joining us here on Kings of the North. We'll catch you later. For Bill Landis, for our producer, Mike Urostowski, I'm Doug Lesmerieses, and that was our live show from Big 12 Media Days on Kings of the North.